All right, so today we're diving deep into how to prepare for a higher education lecturer interview. And we're going to be using RoleCatcher's guides to kind of unpack all the things you need to know to really nail it. So think of this as your own little cheat sheet. We're going to be pulling excerpts from their career guide, their interview guide, and we'll even be talking a little bit about how RoleCatcher's AI can be your secret weapon during the application process.
It's pretty amazing to see how dynamic this role has become. It's not just standing at a lectern anymore. Higher ed lecturers are involved in so much research, mentoring, even leading labs and using tech in their teaching.
Yeah, you're not kidding. It's definitely not the dusty old professor stereotype anymore.
Yeah.
So with all of that in mind, let's dive into some common interview questions that you'll probably encounter. What's the first one we should tackle?
Well, a classic one that often kicks things off is, what inspired you to become a higher education lecturer?
Hmm.
Seems pretty straightforward, but it's actually a really great opportunity to showcase your passion and share your own unique journey.
Yeah, it's like they're asking for your academic origin story. What makes you tick?
Exactly. Think back to those moments that really solidified this career path for you. Was it a specific professor, a research project, maybe even an interaction with a student that had a big impact on you? It's all about pinpointing those aha moments where you realize this is what you're meant to do.
Okay, so connect those personal experiences
Yeah.
to your commitment to education. And this is where I think RoleCatcher's AI can come in handy.
For sure. The AI is really good at analyzing job descriptions to figure out the specific skills and experiences that the employer is looking for. So let's say the job description emphasizes mentoring. Well, you can use that insight to highlight those relevant experiences when you're telling your inspiration story.
Oh, that's smart. So it tailors your response to each specific opportunity.
Yeah.
Like that. Okay, what's another question they might throw your way?
Another common one is, what teaching methods do you use to ensure students understand complex concepts? It's your chance to show off your communication skills and how you can make complicated topics accessible.
Right, because it's not enough to just be an expert in your field. You have to be able to break it down and help others understand it too.
Exactly. Think about all the tools you use as an educator. Do you use real-world examples, visual aids, hands-on activities, or even technology to make things clearer? How do you adjust your teaching style to meet different learning needs? It's all about showcasing your flexibility and adaptability in the classroom.
And speaking of diverse learning styles, RoleCatcher actually highlights that as a really important skill for higher education lecturers. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach anymore.
They even have a specific question about it in their interview guide. How do you teach students with different learning styles? It's a perfect opportunity to really showcase your ability to create an inclusive learning environment.
So yeah, talk about how you assess student needs, how you provide individualized support, and how you use a variety of teaching methods to make sure you're reaching every student. It shows that you really value inclusivity and are committed to student success.
And this is another area where RoleCatcher's AI can be helpful. Let's imagine that the job description specifically mentions a strong emphasis on online learning. The AI would flag that, and it would suggest that you highlight any experience you have with digital tools or online platforms in your answer.
So you can tailor your response to the specific needs of the institution and the program you're applying to. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, what other challenging questions should we prepare for?
Well, how do you incorporate technology into your teaching is becoming super common. They want to know that you're comfortable with technology and can use it effectively to enhance the learning experience.
Yeah, so it's not just about using PowerPoint or knowing how to send an email. Talk about things like interactive simulations, online discussion forums, even educational apps that can really engage students and help them learn more deeply.
Exactly. And, don't forget to mention any experience you have with things like virtual reality or augmented reality. Those cutting-edge tools are becoming increasingly popular in education, and being able to discuss them shows that you're on top of the latest trends.
It paints a picture of a modern educator who embraces innovation and is excited about the possibilities of technology. Now, I know that every classroom experience isn't perfect, so how do you handle those tougher situations?
Oh, they'll definitely want to know how you handle challenging students or any conflicts that arise in the classroom. They might phrase it as, how do you handle a disruptive student? Or describe a time you had to resolve a conflict between students.
So it's about showing them that you have strong emotional intelligence, good problem-solving skills, and the ability to maintain a positive learning environment even when things get a little bit tricky. What's your best advice for tackling these types of questions?
My advice is to focus on specific examples. Briefly describe a challenging situation, explain the steps you took to address it, and then share the outcome. Highlight your communication skills, your ability to de-escalate conflict, and your commitment to finding solutions that benefit everyone involved.
So it's not about pretending that you've never encountered a difficult student. It's more about showing how you've successfully navigated those challenges in the past.
Exactly. And remember, RoleCatcher's AI can actually help you analyze your response. It can point out areas where you could strengthen your answer or provide even more specific examples. It's like having a virtual interview coach.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground already. We talked about inspiration teaching methods, diverse learners technology, and even how to handle challenging classroom situations. Do you think we should dive into a few more questions? Or are you ready for a little break?
Let's keep going. I think we're on a roll.
Yeah, I agree. This is fascinating stuff. It really highlights how much goes into being a successful higher education lecturer. It's not just about being an expert in your field. It's about communication, empathy, and problem solving. So what other questions should we be ready for?
Well, they'll probably want to dig into your approach to assessment and feedback. A common question might be, how do you assess student learning and provide feedback?
Ah, yes, the feedback loop. It's so important, but it can be tricky to get right. What are they really trying to assess with this question?
I think they want to see that you're thoughtful about assessment, that you're not just grading papers and handing them back with a score. You need to show that you use a variety of methods to figure out if students are really understanding the material, and that you can provide feedback that helps them learn and grow.
So it's about using a mix of formative and summative assessments to get a good overall picture of what students are learning.
Exactly. And remember, not all students learn in the same way. This is a good opportunity to bring up your understanding of different learning styles again, and how you tailor your feedback to meet individual needs.
Right, because what works for one student might not work for another. I remember RoleCatcher's Career Guide mentioned that individualized support is especially important at the graduate level. Does that come up in interviews?
Definitely, if the position involves mentoring graduate students, you can expect questions like, what is your approach to mentoring and advising students? They want to see that you can go beyond just coursework and support students in their research professional development, even their career choices.
It's about being a true mentor, building those relationships that can have a huge impact on a student's trajectory.
Absolutely. And when you're answering this question, it's really helpful to share specific examples of successful mentoring experiences you've had in the past.
And to connect your approach back to the specific institution and program you're applying to. Like, how do your mentoring values and style align with theirs?
Exactly. And I think this is another area where RoleCatcher's AI could be really helpful.
You mean it could help tailor your response to the specific expectations of the institution?
Exactly. The AI can analyze the job description and highlight the mentoring aspects that they're emphasizing.
So you can make sure your answer really resonates with them and shows that you understand their needs.
That's a great tip. You know, as we're talking about these questions, I'm noticing a trend. Technology seems to be woven into almost everything.
Oh, absolutely. Technology is a huge topic in higher education these days. RoleCatcher's Career Guide talked about the rise of online learning platforms and digital resources. And I'm thinking, even if a specific job description doesn't explicitly mention online teaching, it's probably smart to be prepared to discuss it.
Definitely. You might get questions about your experience with online teaching hybrid learning models, or how you use technology to encourage collaboration among students. Being able to speak to these trends shows that you understand the changing landscape of higher education.
And that you're adaptable and willing to learn new things. Which brings us to another important point. It's not just about using technology. It's about having a growth mindset.
Oh, absolutely. A willingness to continuously learn and adapt to new tools and approaches is essential.
Speaking of growth and development, interviewers will likely be interested in your own intellectual journey. So be ready for questions like, what are your research interests and how do they relate to your teaching?
It's all about that research-teaching nexus. They want to know that you're actively contributing to your field and that your research informs and enriches your teaching.
So be prepared to explain your research area in a clear and concise way. But even more importantly, connect it back to your teaching. How does your research shape your curriculum? Does it inspire new projects for your students? Showing that synergy is key.
You got it. It's about showing that you're a lifelong learner who's always pushing the boundaries of knowledge and bringing that excitement into the classroom.
Speaking of lifelong learning, I think RoleCatcher itself could be a great tool for professional development, even beyond the interview process.
I agree. Their career guide is packed with resources and insights about higher education. They even have a section on professional organizations and networking opportunities, which can be so valuable for staying connected and informed.
So it's something you can keep coming back to throughout your career, not just when you're job hunting. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you think we should touch on? To help our listeners feel really prepared for those higher education lecturer interviews, as we've been talking about all these questions, I've noticed one thing that keeps coming up: communication skills. It seems like that's super important for higher education lecturers.
Oh, yeah, definitely. You're not just communicating complex ideas to your students, You're also interacting with colleagues, administrators, people in the community.
Right. And RoleCatcher actually lists oral comprehension and written comprehension as key abilities for this role. It's not just about being a good speaker, it's also about being a good listener.
Absolutely. Being able to really understand and respond to your audience is crucial.
And that makes me think of one last question that often comes up in interviews, one that really tests your communication skills. How would you explain your research to someone outside of your field?
Oh, yeah, that's a classic. It's like the elevator pitch for academics.
Right. You have to be able to distill your complex research into a concise and engaging explanation, something that anyone can understand.
They're looking for someone who can bridge the gap between academia and the real world, someone who can make their work relevant and interesting to a wider audience.
So think about the key takeaways of your research. What's the so what factor? Why should people care? And practice explaining it in simple terms, using analogies or examples that people outside your field can relate to.
It's a skill that's helpful throughout your career, not just in interviews. When you're presenting at conferences, writing grant proposals, even just talking to friends and family about your work.
And guess what? RoleCatcher's AI can actually help you practice and refine your elevator pitch.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, you can input your research summary, and the AI will analyze it and give you suggestions for making it clearer, more concise, more impactful.
It's like having your own personal communications coach.
Exactly. Okay, so I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've talked about those tricky interview questions. We've explored the evolving world of higher education. We've even talked about how AI can help you prepare. So before we wrap up, is there one key takeaway you want our listeners to remember as they prepare for their big interviews?
That's a good question. I think it goes back to something we talked about earlier, collaboration. Higher education is becoming more and more interdisciplinary. People are working together across fields to solve complex problems.
So as you're getting ready for your interview, think about how your work connects to other disciplines. What are the opportunities for collaboration? How can your expertise contribute to a larger intellectual community?
Asking yourself those questions shows that you're forward-thinking, and it reveals your passion for expanding your knowledge beyond your own little niche.
It's about showing them that you're not just a brilliant individual, but a team player, someone who's excited to collaborate and contribute to a bigger picture.
Exactly. That enthusiasm, combined with your polished interview skills and a little help from RoleCatcher's AI, can really make you stand out.
I love it. Well, that's it for our deep dive into the world of higher education lecturer interviews. We hope you found it helpful and maybe even a little bit inspiring. Remember, with thorough preparation, a genuine passion for your field, and a willingness to embrace the ever-changing landscape of higher education, you got this.
Absolutely. And don't forget to check out RoleCatcher's amazing resources. Their AI tools and expert guides can really make a difference.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and good luck with those interviews.